Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Old Painless here, looking at a new figure from MMC today. Their rendition of Turmoil, which is labeled as R14 Commotus, part of their reformatted line. Awesome figure. Not something that I really had my heart set on initially. I'm not really too big into IDW, the comic books, any of that stuff. But yeah, this figure really kind of changed my I guess my direction, my attitude towards the comics. I definitely want to check him out now. Just having this figure in hand, he's that cool. Actually, I'm not trying to gush over this so early into the review, but yeah, it definitely impresses me. So you do get two of these little plastic pieces, just like you did on the Spartan figure, also from MMC. These essentially will replace the hands. They kind of plug into place, and then you can plug the gun directly into the tip of the hand. I can probably show that off in a little bit here, but kind of gives him an actual cannon arm versus him holding the weapon itself like that. He does also come with an additional connection piece here, which is a little odd, but they do plug into the forearms. I guess they give you an extra in case you lose this one. This is a very tight connection though, so I wouldn't really worry too much about that. In fact, I just leave it plugged into my arm as is, but that's just a connection point to lock the forearms together for the alt mode. You do get a standard collection card thingamabob there. I don't really collect these. This will go right back into the baggie in the box. But there's your standard spec sheet and whatnot there. Pretty cool, I guess. My instructions came, looks like almost like water damaged or bent. Kind of odd. But instructions there. Kind of breaks down, what comes included. Fairly detailed instructions, pretty straightforward, nothing too complicated. You can see there's Spartan right there, is the other figure that is produced from this mold. And if you flip it over, you get a kind of a stylized rendition of the figure, followed by a comic book, which is pretty well illustrated here. There's Turmoil. I believe that's Seraph, another one of their figures coming out down the road. But yeah, not too bad. It's just a nice little touch. So that comes included with them. We'll just move these little accessories out of the way. We'll take a quick look at the box itself. Right here, you do get a picture of the figure on the front. Some poses and the alt mode picture there as well. Standard warnings. There we go. Graphic of the figure up top. Magnetic front here, so you can open that up and you get that same stylized picture on the inside right there. And the standard clamshell, so you can see the figure stored inside if you want to. But that is that. Let's take a look a little bit closer at it here. Obviously a lot of black in the figure. That's the character itself, so nothing too shocking there. But it's not going to be something that strikes you as, colorful, obviously, and a lot of variety here. It's just a dark, sort of deep character here. But it is actually complemented the standard black plastic. There is some glossy black paint apps. You can see there, like along the abdomen, for example. You do get some silver accents as well, like on the shoulders, the chest right there. Even some greenish blue kind of detailing along, some certain line work, like on the chest and the shoulder pads right there. There you go. Some more silver there in the back as well. The treads themselves are sort of a lighter gray plastic. They look pretty clean, pretty sculpted pretty nicely actually. And then you do get that kind of glossy black there as well on the complementing the tank tread, and then some more black detailing there. And then the gun actually has a nice bit of blue on there, the bluish green color. I'm a little colorblind, honestly, so I think it looks blue to me. I think it might be like a lightish blue color. But you do see it there on the gun as well as the underside. I really like how that blue pops and contrasts the black on the figure. There actually have been some board members on the TFW boards that have gone the extra step, and they've actually painted some additional line details. For example, like all along, like these little lines on this back portion, they've actually gone ahead and hand painted that same blue color in there as well, and man, it looks so sharp. I kind of wish MMC had done that themselves, just to kind of give it a little bit more color breakup on the figure and just really make this figure pop. Because as it is, it looks great, but you know, it's things like little details like the that blue that really just kind of make the figure stand out. So there are some silver details there as well on the rib cage, and the eyes are a nice sort of crimson red. See if I can get that in picture there. I don't think it's lighting up too well, but it's a nice crimson red color, painted very cleanly. I like that quite a bit. But overall, again, it's not gonna wow you with an abundance of paint app or paint on this guy at all. But what it does have is done very cleanly, and especially the little line detailing and whatnot, applied very well. And you know, it's meant to be a dark figure, so you know, definitely get them well lit if you have them on display, because it's gonna really kind of wash out if you have them in a dark area. But liking it quite a bit. Just for some comparisons really quickly, if you want to see him next to, say, a Masterpiece style figure, there is MMC Sphinx, aka Mirage. You can see height-wise they're pretty close. He's actually a tad taller. Something else from Mastermind Creations in the reformatted line, there is Hexatron. So if I actually get him in frame here. There we go. So yeah, that's one of my few complaints about the figure. It's not that it's small. I mean, I guess it is small. It's not meant to be Masterpiece scaled. And I figure that if it was meant to be a Masterpiece in size, it probably would be closer to MP10 or like a Polyon size, along those lines. I mean, closer to maybe 6-shot right here. I know he's meant to be a larger figure overall, but or a larger character, that is. But you know, this is meant to be sort of a leader type character, so I would imagine him a bit larger if you were kind of squeeze him into an MP collection. So it may not really fit that mold too well. But you know, I mean, collect and display what you like. It's really up to you and how you want to display your figures, and oops, you know, and what looks right to you. Yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and we'll get them transformed. Actually, before we do that, let's take a look at some articulation here. Head is on a ball joint. You get some decent downward looking motion, actually. You do get a full 360 for the head pivot there. The ball joint for the back look is amazing. The way the rear of the helmet is sculpted, I mean, you can almost get a full vertical look right there, which is pretty impressive. The shoulder pads, now these allow you to pivot them, so you can display it however you want to. You know, like that, so you can get them up completely. If you display like this, then it's going to limit the shoulder articulation. So you need to sort of adjust the shoulder, get the pose you want, and then you can readjust the shoulder pads as you want to. I do like the little details, like these little spikes here on the front. It's really cool. But arms can do a full 360. You do get an outward motion here. It's a nice little cut there, so you get almost a full extension out to the side. Upper bicep swivel, perfect. Double jointed elbows. So we'll pivot here, and we'll pivot there for the full compression. Be mindful of these little elbow pads. They will pop off. They're connected via friction. They'll probably pop off as I transform them. Although I gotta tell you, the more I've transformed them, the more stable they seem to have become, and they don't really fall off that often anymore. But if they do come off, just pop them right back on. No big deal. But good articulation there. There's actually going to be 2 waist pivots. Right there you can see the lower section, and then actually this won't pivot once it's locked in place, but for tank mode, this upper cut right here will actually be the tank turret rotation. Also, hands are on a bit of a rocker, like a ball joint-esque connection, so they do get a lot of wiggle, and they do also get you a pivot, which is nice. No finger articulation, but they're sculpted pretty nicely too. They hold the weapon very well, as you can see right there. So no problems there. Hips are decently articulated. They get pretty much all the articulation you need. Forward, back goes fairly far as well. And then out to the side, nearly a Van Damme split there. This hip is a tiny bit looser than this one. This one actually feels really stiff. You can probably tell there's no ratchets at all, which really isn't a bad thing. The friction, I think, handles it, the stability of the figure quite well, so I don't really miss the ratchet, but it's definitely odd that this one is significantly, well, not, I wouldn't say it's loose. I mean, it holds the pose really well. This one just feels really stiff. So I guess your mileage will vary on the joints right there. This upper portion here, there is a thigh swivel. Oops, as I unpop the leg. And there's also an additional swivel here, which does break the sculpt up. But, why keep popping that out? One thing of note is if you position these forward, then this piece of plastic will butt into the hip, which prevents a full leg extension. So you do have the ability to pivot the top portion. I keep popping that open. And then pivot that thigh piece. So if you want to get a more forward kick, you can manipulate that sculpt there and those two joints to get it. The knees give you nearly 90 degrees. That's more than adequate. These flaps here can move up and down to allow more toe articulation. And the feet are actually on a ball joint as well as a hinge. So they give you a heck of a lot of motion and movement. I mean, pretty much all you'd really want, as well as a toe pivot there too. So he really gives you all the articulation you're looking for. Plenty of poseability. Very, very nice overall. So yeah, liking this bot mode quite a bit. We're going to jump to a cut and we'll come back and take a look at the transformation. Alright guys, thanks for sticking around. We're going to take a look at the transformation now. First things first, let's pop off the gun. Actually, one thing we can show off really quickly is we'll just pull the hand out, and I do have these here, so we can actually just pop this into place. I mentioned before showing off the cannon hand. So that just pops into place there. Oops. The handle actually is on a pivot, so this will rock back, and then this will just slide in right there. Oops. And then you can basically pop that on. So in case you want to actually have a cannon arm, it's doable. Not my cup of tea. I don't really care for that. But we'll go ahead and put those aside, get the hand back on, and let's go ahead and get this guy transformed. So first step we want to do is we're going to pop open the chest, fold in the head. Pretty simple. We can go ahead and also, while the chest is down, that frees up these little tabs here on the arms. This little tab right there on the side that actually locks in to this portion right here on the side of the chest. So with that opened up, we can then extend this back panel, which is on a double hinge system. And by the way, we can go ahead and reclose up this with the head tucked back in there. This double hinge has a rotation right there, so we can rotate that around 180. Okay. The next thing we want to do is let's handle the arms. We can rotate these 180. Okay. Oops. Actually, we want to rotate it so this hole there lines up with that peg on the shoulder. So we're going to utilize this double jointed shoulder. That just popped off, so you can see that. Actually, this hole goes into this peg, not on the shoulder, but down below here. And it's basically going to peg it on itself like that. And I was right, actually. It is going to go do a full 180. So you want to have the fist bending towards that screw right there. Okay. And bear with me here. This is my first time transforming on camera. There we go. So 180 for the upper arm. And actually, I'm going to do that one after, just to give me a little more flexibility here. Next step I want to do is we need to get this butt flap on this side. So we're actually going to rotate the entire waist assembly. Just like so. Rotate that around, and this little peg here is going to go into that section on the waist. And I'll just click into place. The front of the bot is now facing towards its butt, just like that. Let's go ahead and free up that arm. I want to just handle this waist section first. So the next step is going to be to rotate this flap inwards, and doing that, there's these round plastic pieces are going to fit along these sort of rounded, sculpted out sections on the waist. Okay, so pretty easy. They don't really snap into place per se, but they kind of just click in there. One thing of note is we do want to extend these upwards just to get them out of the way. Once that's tentatively lined up right there, just fold it up just like that. So nothing too crazy. Now there's two looks to how we can do this, okay? These pistons are designed to go inside these turrets, and they really limit the articulation. I'm actually going to raise them up for right now, just so you can see how the intended transformation is. We can look at it afterwards with these taken out. But basically, line up the holes there with those little plastic spokes. Oops. Not really that tricky to do, but the only hard part about it is really just lining up both at the same time. But nothing too complicated. There we go. So lift that up for right now. And that is that, okay? Next step, let's just get these legs kind of bent back for now. We'll handle these in a second. I want to actually get the arms taken care of, okay? So the arms are going to rotate forward with the fists facing out like that. And then again, utilize that double jointed shoulder. Fold in on itself and peg that forearm into the upper arm like that. The fist will be, laying against that screw hole in the back of that shoulder pad. So that's the format that we want here. So rotate that up. Double jointed arms. Fold that sucker down. Peg that in. And then these holes here, if you can see that, they actually will fold inwards onto that peg hole there, okay? So they're going to kind of accordion in like that. And then this peg will go into that hole there. And we really want to make sure that the arms and stuff are lined up 90 degrees. So things are kind of at smooth angles coming in here. Adjust the shoulder pads. And then collapse that section in. Oops. There we go. There we go. Of course, it's not wanting to cooperate. And there we go. It's a lot harder than it actually looked, but it's really simple, actually. You can see this peg here, that slot will go right into that hole. You can just put that sucker right back on, put some pressure, boom, done. And that is that. That's the arm assembly taken care of right there. The legs are actually pretty fun, so this is the next part. Rotate these outwards, spin them, invert them essentially. There's a peg here which will go into the heel of the foot. So that's just going to peg into place. We can then unpeg this tread from the inside, and that will click into place. Collapse those toe flaps. Now this is the one thing, this isn't complicated at all, but just one thing you want to be aware of when transforming it. So we want to basically get the outside tread here 180 so it's pointed in. So we need to rotate this just like so. In most cases it's going to rotate this upper piece here as well as the thigh, just like mine did right there. But basically make sure that this angled portion of that thigh piece is sort of pointing up, okay? I'll show you again, but basically that's how you want it. This piece pointing up, the thigh completely rotated fully around so it breaks up the sculpt right there. The inner tread will be facing outwards, okay? And then there's going to be a series of pegs. This peg here is actually going to plug into this piece, so it's a little peg hole right there, and then this peg right here is going to plug in down below right there. Okay, and then these series of pegs just kind of fall into place pretty easily. So from this point here, we're going to unpeg the knee joint, swing this 180 around, and I find it's a lot easier that if we get this peg here settled first, things kind of just fall into place afterwards. So you get that one kind of lined up. Come on, baby. And then, oh, come on. Come on. Oh, forgot a pretty crucial step here. These pieces fold back and around. That was actually causing an obstruction right there. So yeah, these little flaps here fold backwards. Okay, let's try that again. Hey, things are clicking into place now. Go figure. So once you get that rear one settled, you can squeeze that front one in and you're in pretty good shape. Alright, so that one's all set. We're going to just do this other leg pretty quickly. Unfold, rotate the foot around, peg that foot in, extend the leg, click that into place, rotate this joint. Now you notice this joint didn't go as freely, so the main thing what you want to do is just make sure when you rotate this initially, rotate both of the thigh assemblies up, and then once you see that angle there, just like that, then you can go ahead and rotate the rest of the leg fully, just like so. Pretty easy. Go ahead, fold those flaps down, start pegging stuff in. Come on. That goes in. That goes in. And then one thing which you want to note, this one actually plugged in automatically, but there is a peg on the tread which will go into the forearm. So just make sure those collapse in place right there. But other than that, that's the body of the tank done. Everything's plugged in nice and tight, front and back. We'll go ahead and grab the cannon, fold that handle back down. There's a hole there in that turret assembly. Just plug that right in, and that is Turmoil transformed into his tank mode. And you know what? This isn't really a typical transformation or an alt mode, I guess, but it's pretty awesome actually. It's a rendition of, or an homage, I guess, to the SNK Metal Slug game. It's very stylized tank mode. I love it. I mean, this is actually what attracted me to this figure. You know, why I wanted to buy it and pull the trigger on this figure. It's so stylized. It's so unique. I've never really seen a Transformer with an alt mode like this before. Yeah, I just love it. I mean, it has a nice sort of curved tank tread design, which has a nice sort of smooth arc to it. It has that giant cannon right there. You know, the scoops on the front for the, you know, pushing other robots out of the way, I guess. The pistons are kind of a nice touch. It does hamper the articulation, so you can see it is sort of a working piston, but it really limits how much flexibility you get with that cannon. If you do untab these, you can actually fold these upwards, and you can put the piston portion straight back down, and then you'll get a full 360. And these little silver pieces kind of look like little cannons, like mini cannons or guns off the turret. The cannon itself does give you an up and down motion, which is nice. There are no wheels of any sort here, so it won't roll. But I mean, overall, it looks really clean. It's a nice, compact, super stylized tank. I love it. Again, paint apps aren't going to be in abundance on this figure, but you do get a very prominent silver there in the front. Some of the glossy black paint I mentioned is visible there in the front as well, which is pretty cool. Silver detailing on the pistons. You do get that bluish greenish, more bluish I guess, on the gun, on the underside especially, which looks great. The tank treads again pop out. They're sort of that off gray color there with the glossy black there for the wheels as well. Little gappy on the back, but it's not terrible. I don't mind that. It still looks tankish. Doesn't look awful. The underside's fairly clean as well. I mean, you do see the hands there, but not an issue for me. I'm never gonna see this from the bottom, so. But that is the tank mode. We'll pull a masterpiece vehicle in here just for scale comparison to get you an idea of what it looks like. Probably helps if I get it in frame so you can see it. There we go. But yeah, that's that. All right. Alright, so final thoughts on this figure. You know what? This is a figure I never knew I wanted. It was something I saw initially, you know, at one of the trade shows, you know, a year or two ago in prototype form that I thought looked cool. Didn't know anything about the character, was not really anything on my must-have sort of list, but really glad I picked them up. I don't consider myself to be an MMC fanboy by any means. I mean, my purchases from MMC are limited to this, Hexatron. I do have Feral Rex, so that's the extent of my reformatted line. I do have Sphinx as well, but, you know, I didn't end up buying Azalea, I didn't buy Voss, I didn't buy any of the other figures. They weren't really characters that I was into, per se. So, you know, when this finally came out, and seeing some pictures and some reviews, I mean, it really... It's kind of wowed me, actually, and I'm glad I took a chance, purchased the figure, and you know, gave it a shot, because he ended up being a really cool and really fun and unique character. I mean, how often do you see a Metal Slug inspired alt mode, tank mode, that looks fantastic? And not to mention the bot mode here is pretty stunning in terms of just aesthetics, articulation, proportions. I mean, proportions are phenomenal on this. I mean, it's a really impressive bot. It actually makes me want to go back and maybe look at Spartan again, which is the other figure based off this mold, and maybe look at the other, what are they, the Decepticon Justice Division, or DJDs? I'm not really sure, but those other figures I'm actually interested in now too because of this guy. So overall, great figure, very impressive. If you're on the fence, I think once you get him in hand, he'll win you over. If you're looking for a bot that is just unique, I think the alt mode alone is something pretty special. It's just kind of fun to have on your desk and mess around with. I mean, tank modes I think in general are really neat, but just the stylized version of it is a winner in my eyes. And then the bot mode looks menacing. It's a really nice interpretation of Turmoil. So there you have it. If you're interested in Turmoil or Commotus, then definitely give this guy a look. It has the MMC quality that you know, you kind of come to expect at this point. He's not going to disappoint you. I think it's a well worth the purchase. So go ahead and pick him up. Thanks for watching, guys.